The pre-mortem analysis. If you truly can't stomach the thought of starting something without analyzing a complete plan, you can try making a pre-mortem analysis. Think of it as a more strategic way of overthinking that cuts down on the length that we so desire. The pre-mortem analysis was invented by psychologist Gary Klein and works by looking ahead to scenarios where you failed and working backwards to find causes, weaknesses, threats, and flaws. The more well-known post-mortem analysis looks at a situation, analyzes what went wrong, and finds a solution after the fact. The pre-mortem attempts to do this before the fact to avoid those flaws. This creates a laser focus for your mental chatter instead of being overwhelmed with everything and anything. Now, this type of analysis has value for its own sake. Instead of trying to plan everything you need for success, change your approach and plan what to do to avoid failure. Focus on avoiding one type of outcome as opposed to seeking another out. This type of analysis can help you plan better and more effectively for the long term, and it forces you to look at your strategies from a different perspective. It's simple and can help avoid potential pitfalls in any endeavor, which is what we're typically most afraid of. Because you allow yourself to fail on paper, you're able to highlight possible problems that you might have otherwise missed because you were thinking of so many things. How does this aid with taking action? The pre-mortem analysis only gives you one scenario or set of variables to think about: failure. It's easier to think in an organized manner when you only have to imagine one outcome. It cuts all the other chatter out of your mind and streamlines your thoughts. This type of analysis spotlights the most important factor and organizes just a few scenarios to think through. Imagine the failure, brainstorm some potential causes, see how you can address them, or if you can at all, and then jump. This approach to action strikes a large contrast with the type of unorganized and scattered thought that typically holds you back. Of course, this is only if you can actually use the pre-mortem analysis to replace your other mental chatter, instead of adding it to your checklist of things to fret about. That's the tough step, but hopefully using this analysis once or twice will show you how much information it can yield so you can start to forego other thoughts. Let's take an example of imagining how a hypothetical business will fail. Imagine the year is 2023 and your organic baby food business just went bankrupt. Let's assume you lost money every year since 2021. If you were to make a hypothesis, what are the causes of a future failure? You probably know what to focus your efforts on, so what happened? What went wrong? Zoom in on the possible causes of failure based on what you're worried about right now. Was it inadequate market research? Was there ineffective communication in your organization? Was it a competitor? Margins that were too thin to begin with? Ask what you can do with only those four factors at the current moment. If the answer is nothing, which is likely, make a note for later and then jump into action. After all, the thing you're most worried about is failure. So in theory, you've just addressed your greatest threats. 4 clear threads of thought beats 10 disorganized ones. Once you thoroughly think about how to avoid failure, what's left other than to make an attempt to prove yourself right or wrong? Engage only in your pre-mortem analysis and resist planning paralysis. Gathering more information than you absolutely need, conducting multiple analyses of different ways to achieve something, combing over minute and usually unnecessary details, debating back and forth in your own head about multiple scenarios, all of these actions are used as something that will postpone your taking action. After all, it's easier to plan than to do. Planning in itself is a comfort zone, and not only because you can do it from a couch. To do something, you have to get outside and risk a certain vulnerability. So it's always easier to keep planning because technically, it's useful to your task. You can lead yourself to believe you're being productive toward your overall goal. Keep in mind that over-planning is an often redundant process that people hide behind. Finally, the pre-mortem forces you to think only in terms of pertinent knowledge as opposed to just-in-case knowledge. Just in case knowledge is information that you're not sure you'll need, but you want to overthink on, just in case an improbable and unlikely situation comes to pass. You might understand this better in the case of an extensive wardrobe, packed with a pink feathered scarf and a pair of purple military fatigue sweatpants, just in case you happen to attend an eccentric neon theme night somewhere. At some point, you'll likely realize that what you're preparing for just in case is really never to occur. As has been mentioned, being prepared is an admirable trait, but this book is aimed at kicking us into gear more frequently and consistently. To do so, you must risk feeling slightly less prepared by understanding that a lot of what you're using to hold yourself back from action is not important, and is in fact just in case-based knowledge that will ultimately be useless. Plutarch once famously wrote, "Spartans do not ask how many are the enemy, but where are they?" The meaning? The Spartans would be there to fight any enemy, regardless of how many there were, and additional information wouldn't change their tactics in any way. The number was not important, so they only gathered the minimum information they needed and went forth with action. The don't do list. Sometimes when we're overthinking, it's because we can't choose what to first turn our attention to. Too many things have the potential to command our focus, and sometimes we can't differentiate between what we should avoid and what actually deserves our attention. We also may feel that everything is urgent and important. Thus, the focus of this section is to make crystal clear what you should be avoiding. It's similar to the ostrich theory and willful ignorance in that you need to be intentional about what you feel like you're letting go of. In reality, you aren't letting go, you're streamlining. Now, everyone knows the value of the to-do list. No doubt, you've stumbled across tips elsewhere about using a to-do list to increase productivity and your ability to take action. My point is that everyone inherently kind of knows what they should be doing and when they need to do it by. The act of writing it down just helps remind them and keep them accountable. This makes them more likely to do what they know they should be doing, more than if they didn't have such a list. But not everyone knows what they shouldn't be doing. Each day, we're faced with trying to figure out what will create the biggest impact for us, and sometimes we spend time we don't have trying to make this choice. Again, we all know the obvious evils to avoid when trying to upgrade productivity: social media, goofing around on the internet, watching The Bachelorette while trying to work, or learning to play the flute while reading. It can be difficult to distinguish between real tasks and useless tasks, and it will require some hard thought on your part. If you're lucky, you may find that you put almost everything onto your don't-do list, leaving an obvious path for you to take action. You need to fill your don't-do list with tasks that will sneakily steal your time and undermine your goals. These are tasks that, 1, are insignificant, 2, are a poor use of your time, 3, don't help your bottom line or end purpose, and 4, have a serious case of diminishing returns the more you work on them. If you continuously waste your time on these tasks, your real priorities will fall by the wayside. I've identified 3 general types of tasks to put on your don't-do list. First, tasks that are priorities, but you can't do anything about them at present because of external circumstances. These are tasks that are important in one or many ways, but are waiting for feedback from others or for underlying tasks to be completed first. Put these on your don't-do list because there's literally nothing you can do about them. Don't spend your mental energy thinking about them. They'll still be there when you hear back from those other people. Just note that you're waiting to hear back from someone else and the date on which you need to follow up if you haven't heard back. Then, push these out of your mind because they're on someone else's to-do list, not yours. The ball is in someone else's court, for better or worse. Second are tasks that don't add value as far as your main goals and projects are concerned. There are many small items that don't add to your bottom line, and often these are trivial things, busy work. Do they really require your time? For that matter, are they worth your time? These tasks are just a wasted motion for the sake of motion, and don't really matter in the big picture. This is where we come to differentiating between aimless motion and actual, intentional action. They're easily disguised as each other, right down to the fact that they both feel good to engage in. However, one delivers an outcome that you want, action, and the other is something that doesn't accomplish anything in the end, motion. You can spend a lot of time investigating gyms and researching workout routines, but if you never step foot inside of one, that's a whole lot of wasted motion, running on a hamster wheel. So you should spend your time on bigger tasks that speak to your overall goals and not myopic, trivial tasks. Often, these are useless tasks disguised as important ones, such as selecting the paint color for the bike shed in the parking lot of the nuclear power plant you're building. Third, include tasks that are current and ongoing, but will not benefit from additional work or attention paid to them. These tasks suffer from diminishing returns. These projects are just a waste of energy because, while they can still stand to improve, and is there anything that can't? The amount of likely improvement will either not make a difference in the overall outcome or success, or will take a disproportionate amount of time and effort without making a significant dent. For all intents and purposes, these tasks should be considered done. Don't waste your time on them, and don't fall into the trap of considering them a priority. Once you finish everything on your plate, you can then evaluate how much time you want to devote to polishing something. If the task is at 90% of the quality you need it to be, it's time to look around at what else needs your attention to bring it from 0 to 90%. In other words, it's far more helpful to have 3 tasks completed at 80% quality versus 1 task at 100% quality. When you consciously avoid the items on your don't do list, you keep yourself focused and streamlined. A don't do list enables you to know exactly where your path should lead and what action to take on first. When you're at a fork in the road and each fork looks equally appealing, you're going to be stuck in analysis paralysis, a perpetual debate between options that leaves you motionless in reality. Eliminate some of those forks right off the bat. Take rapid action. Get productive, motivated, and energized. Stop overthinking and procrastinating. Written by Patrick King. Narrated by Russell Newton.